Hey everyone, welcome to the Cycling for Life podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stensrud, and today I'm super excited because I've got a guest. He's a great cyclist and a great human being and one of the nicest and friendliest and happiest people I know. And he's a great ambassador for the sport. The other thing is that he's not a one-trick pony because he does not just live by, I'm a roadie, fat bike guy. He does it all. So I thought the best way to do this podcast and introduce him properly is I've compiled a list of some of his accomplishments. And you'll notice none of them are on the same bike. And these are all these are not little races. So let's start with Leadville. So he's done Leadville. Everyone knows Leadville, the 100-mile mountain bike race in Leadville, Colorado. If you do it under 9 hours, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And you get a buckle for it. 6 consecutive years, he's broke 9 hours in this race. And again, you are climbing 10,000 feet, you're doing 100 miles, and you're starting at 10,000 feet in elevation. It's a very epic event. And he did in 2023, did the same kind of a version of it. They have a stage race, and he can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe it's a 3-day stage race. It's before the event. And what it does is, you just do parts of this, but you're doing it probably at a higher intensity because you're not going as far. But your overall time is just like the Tour de France. It's calculated. And when he did that, he got first in his age category in 2023. But even more impressive than that, the guy finished 10th overall compared to everybody. Which is even more impressive. All right, so let's throw away the mountain bike. Let's grab the gravel bike. He's done the Dirty Kanza, or what we call now the Unbound 200. It's become a massive, just a massive event. It's part of the Leadville series, and he can talk about that a little bit. But in 2018, he placed 4th place in his age category in the 45 to 50 or 49. He was 41st overall, which is incredible. This is a really hard. This is probably the hardest event that they probably have on the gravel scene in terms of just length. It's brutal, and if it rains, it's just In 2021, he got 3rd place in his age category. Again, incredible, and he was 40th overall. And I remember this one. I'll ask him too, because back in the day, in 2021, a lot of the roadies were kind of coming off the road scene, and they were getting into gravel. And I remember Steve, because it was on TV, I saw some video, and he's riding with some of the top tour guys who have been in the Tour de France, guys who are the top road people in the country. And there's my buddy Steve riding there. I think he had a mechanical, but after 40 miles, he's messing with these guys. And I'm like, this is so cool. So anyways, let's put the gravel bike away, then go do the road race. This one, I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm flying to New York. I'm like, what are you doing there for that? Well, there's this huge series, this Grand Fondo series, and I've been invited because I won in Malaysia. And I remember that. So he won the Grand Fondo in Malaysia. And so he was invited to do the New York one. There's like 5,000 riders in there. And he goes over there, and he wins his age category. And he finishes 37th out of like 5,000 people. And I'm sure he had a smile on his face the whole time, right? Now we throw that away. We have a fat bike. So a lot of people don't know what fat bikes are, but if you're in Minnesota, you know what a fat bike is. And so he raced, and look this up sometime on YouTube. It's the fat bike Berkey. It's basically riding your fat bike on the same cross-country course as the Olympic skiers. I think it's 30 miles. He can tell me or not. It is insane because it's just up and down, and these guys are flying. It's like a crit. It's point to point. Anyways, he's won that 6 times in his career. So he started in 2018. And every year he wins his age category. But in 2021, 2022, the guy placed 3rd and then 4th overall against some of the best road riders, some of the best watt-producing dudes on the planet, which is awesome. So now you throw that away. Oh, you got a cross bike. So let's do a little cross. He got 3rd place in Jingle Cross in 2021 for his age group. But just the fact that he's out there riding, most people are like, let's take a break, buddy. Nope, Jingle Cross in the fall. 3 weeks ago, one of my favorite races, this is back to the road, got to pull the road bike out. He went to La Crosse, Wisconsin. They have a great Omnium down there. It's held in May, and it's a 3-day race. So you got 1 day as a time trial up Granddad's Bluff, the hardest 2.5 time trial ever. I hate it. I've done it a few times. It's the worst in 10 minutes. He does a lot faster than that. And then you do a road race on the next day, and you do a crit the next day. And then you take your cumulative time, and you get a winner. And guess what? He won the whole thing this year. He crushed the time trial. He did really well. He won the road race. It's a very hilly road race. And then I got to ask him about this. He did really surprisingly well in the crit. So he placed well there. And he got 2000 in 2023. He was second overall. So he just moved up one spot in the podium. The guy just rocks. And finally, in 2023, let's pull the gravel bike. And I'll ask him about this. This Highlands Gravel Classic. And I have on here, it's a UCI Gravel Worlds qualifier. Like, who go? I mean, no one's going to go there unless you're really, really good. He got second in his age category from 50 to 54. He's done a ton of, there's so many races that he's podiumed in. He's got more trophies and KOMs on Strava than anyone I know. He's a great guy. And so, with further ado, let me introduce Steve Marshall. Steve, how you doing?
That's quite an intro, Mike. Thanks.
I only do one thing. I do a time trial, one bike, and that's all I do. To do some of the stuff you're doing on different bikes, different disciplines against some of the best people in the country in some of the biggest events, like 200-mile events, 100-mile mountain bike, and on 10,000 feet. I mean, these are not easy events, and you crush them. Okay, first question. The first one and the most important one, how many bikes do you own?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. There's probably 15 or 20 out there. So between my wife and I, right? So Sandy, so we both ride. So we both have probably 5 or 6 active bikes, like a road bike, a gravel bike, a hardtail mountain bike, a suspension mountain bike. What am I missing in there? Fat bikes. So and then there's a couple extra, I've got the cross bikes, and then I think we've got, she's got a couple gravel bikes. So yeah, and then my classic old bikes from when I was riding, when I was younger, kind of the first time I started riding, and then the last 10 years, I guess I collected the rest. So yeah, it's probably like 20 or something.
Hey, one thing you didn't mention, don't you have a time trial bike?
Oh, yeah, no, I do have a triathlon bike. I missed that. So Sandy and I both have triathlon bikes. I guess it's a time trial bike, but I don't think they're UCI legal because they were from our triathlon days. So, yeah, got that too.
When did you know? Was it early on in your career that you had this special athletic gift?
I cycled a bit when I was in high school. When I actually was on a mountain bike team for a season or two, but it was like, way before. I mean, I didn't learn any skills at all. Anyway, we can get into that. But I rode a bit in high school, first couple of years in college, but I never was an athlete, right? I wasn't in organized sports. I did taekwondo when I was in high school, but that's about it. And I biked because I needed to get around. And so then I think it was probably like Le Mans was winning the tour kind of when I was in high school, I think, or junior high. And I think that brought some interest. And then my buddies and I, so we started cycling a bit. But when I look at where I'm at, because I raced against Greg LeMond when he rode the 1988 Shawamigan Fat Tire Festival. It was called the Fat Tire Festival at the time because mountain bikes were fat tires then, right?
Yeah,
so
he lived out.
Yeah. So he came and I think he won it. I finished 200th out of 2,000 or something, and that was, whatever it is, 35 years ago. And now I'm like way faster than I was then. So I went to college, I got a job, I started working a lot. I mean, I spent my time building my career and working. I didn't really start in earnest cycling until about 10 years ago.
That's amazing.
I started doing longer stuff. What really changed it was when I started with Lifetime and we had that, remember the Power Plus back, because you were one of the coaches, right?
Yeah.
And so Tiffany Berenberg over at the Plymouth Club started a small group session where there was like 6 or 8 of us, and we were learning about intervals. I had no concept of power meters and intervals and all the data, which I know you love, and it was like, that was sort of eye-opening because I'd been doing some triathlon. I did one like in 2000, I don't know what it was, 10-ish, something like that, maybe a little sooner. We did, when I was living in Europe the last time, we did the Paris Triathlon, my wife and I, and then we went and did one in Barcelona. And so I was just like, doing it, having fun, getting a little bit more fit. And really, we started doing a lot of that because we were living in Paris and France, and like the food was always so good, but I was never hungry, and so I needed to to get hungry, and I wanted to exercise, and so that's what kind of honestly the last round here kind of started a lot of it. So, but yeah, then it was back to the U.S. in like 2013. I remember Sandy signing us up for the P plus class, and I was kind of skeptical. I was like, "What's this all about?" But wow, that is like the start of everything, right? Like the understanding of training and what intervals can do, and then it was just like kind of ramping up. And we were doing triathlon at the time, both of us. We worked our way up to Ironman distance. I think we did 2015, 16, 17. I did two, and Sandy did one, and then it just sort of moved into just cycling, just because of all that running was killing my knees, and I didn't have any concept of stretching and what the IT band was all about, and like doing all that stuff that you need to do. Otherwise, you're going to get injured and get sore. So, but yeah, I remember you at Chan Club, right? So so between you, Tiffany, and then John Knutson over at Plymouth, like the best, interval indoor cycling workouts ever. I just loved them, so you come there and just like for an hour, just kill yourself, and watch the numbers. Do you remember was it bike 9? I think that was the easy one. So if we were going to do an FTP test, you and I would fight over that bike.
Okay, so here's the story very quickly. I remember you coming in, and it was at our place in Chanhassen, and we were doing an FTP. And at that time, yeah, some of those they were Stages bikes, and they're very good. But some of them, when you're doing some of the accuracy on those, may be elevated a little bit. So that's okay. It doesn't matter. I knew what my power was, and I knew when I went in and did that. But you came in and we did an FTP, and I had a lot of good people in there. And I remember to the day it was 334 watts or 333. I'm like, do you realize how that? I'm like, this guy is little. How is he putting that kind of watt? Even if the bikes are a little bit off, it was like, okay, let's say that's 320, and this is insane. I remember just telling her, do you realize how that? And I just knew what your watts per kilogram would have been. So. That was. Now you're telling me that was before you even trained. So I can imagine. Do you know what your FTP is now?
I think it's pretty much the same. I've been able to kind of maintain over the course of time, even as, so, but I don't test it very often. So it's really kind of a little bit hard to tell.
Yeah. Then I got afraid riding with you because I knew what you had. And like now when people know, it's one thing not to know the numbers behind people. That doesn't mean everything. But in your case, I'm like, oh man, this guy is God. So hill climbing.
Yeah, but when I felt like when I went and rode with you when you were doing the outdoor ride at Chan, remember in the summer with the rest of the Bora Masters group, and I didn't do much outdoor riding yet and group riding. It's one thing to be able to have a fitness and be able to ride, but to be able to do that on the road with a bunch of people and all that, like.
Yeah.
And I remember being off the front and Mark Halverson kind of coaching me. He's like, okay, don't go and use 100%. Go enough, save enough so that when you feather around to the back, you don't get dropped. and like those little things, like you guys teaching me, because I had no concept of how to do a group ride, and so that was a lot of fun.
Well, you picked that up fast. Well, that's interesting because you never know. Some people come into the sport with a lot of athletic background and stuff like that. So that's so it's even more remarkable than all those things I just listed about you, and having that happen in the last decade. You're like, oh my God, what a great timing! Because if you're ever going to reach your peak, I mean, in terms of longevity and living a healthy life and trying to get your fitness and your VO2 max as high as it can get, because it's going to go down, man, you did it right.
If I look at where I made like this big evolution and into like distance and kind of just like endurance, like the ultra endurance was Randall's Midtown Cycling, Randall Hooskamp. So I got introduced to him. So I was racing Lutsen, and I was riding with the guy for like the last 60 miles. We were chatting it up, and I was just like, where can I go and find a really good, welcoming group ride that's like, he's like, oh, you need to come to Midtown and start riding with Randall. And Randall's just an amazing community builder around cycling and just like, you want to ride, come here, we'll help you, we'll get you you got to be able to hang on to the group because it's like, it's long rides on Saturday, Sunday, and then Wednesday night. But that was really awesome because it was one, building endurance, so long rides, like two rides over the weekend. But also the thing that he does through the middle of all the rides, he'll put in interval sessions. And it's not like a fixed interval, but it's like sprints. So there's maybe it's a half a mile, maybe it's 3 miles, and he doesn't tell you how long they are. So you got to kind of figure it out. But and so you're doing long endurance stuff, but mixed in, you're doing interval work and you don't even know it, right? You're competing for sport beans and so it's just a lot of fun. And so rode with Midtown for a number of years, actually up until probably COVID, as like COVID kind of changed the game on, kind of habits and things like that. But that was fantastic. What an amazing group we have in Minneapolis for people, anybody who wants to go cycle and get to part of a group riding scene. It's just super. So,
and I hope you're listening, Randy. I'll send you a copy of this because this is really, honestly, he is the best ambassador. I think I'm the only rider that didn't come up through him. Everyone on my team, on the Bora Masters, everyone I know in Minneapolis he's touched them in so many different ways. He's a great guy, great ambassador. So way to go, Randall. I'm going to switch over to your bikes here. You have a lot of different disciplines, right? Do you have one that you like the most?
So I really like fat bike racing. I don't know why. It's something, it's not ultra long, but it's super hard, right? So it's like 1 to 2 hours. So it's like all out. I haven't been doing this as long as a lot of people, and I haven't necessarily focused on all the skills. So if you ask anybody, they'll tell you, like, Marshall's got a big engine, but, he's not the best at, from a technical perspective on the mountain bike trails or the gravel, making the corners and the high-speed descents and all that. So I have to make up with that with, working the motor, right? But so fat biking, I really enjoy. And I would say just general, if I'm just going to pick a bike and go for a ride, I'm going to grab a road bike. In 10 minutes to the west from my house, there's no stoplights. I'm on the country roads. They're big shoulders, not many cars. I can go for just beautiful rides, which I do very often. So that's like, if I'm just riding, it's a road bike. If I had to pick the favorite racing, it would be a fat bike.
Yeah, that surprised me. I got rid of my fat bike because here in Arizona, they don't have fat bikes here. They don't. But the road I missed, and I think you were referring to it, County Road 6.
Yeah.
Like up in there, I wish. In fact, I'm going to come back to Minneapolis. I'm going to bring my time trial bike just so I could ride, so I could ride my time trial bike on that stretch. We don't have that kind out here. We have a lot of beautiful things out here, but we don't have that kind of road where you can just get on and go go forever. So that's cool. Okay, let's talk about some training. All right, do you have a coach?
I do. I've had the same coach for, I think, since 2018. I was thinking about that this morning. It's like, when the heck was? So it's like almost 5-6 years. It was just before Leadville. I remember saying, should we wait till after Leadville or right now? And they're like, she was like, let's go. So was introduced to somebody by a friend that knew, that knew somebody, and it's been working really good. Like, I don't have to think about it, right? Like,
good. I just wanted to ask because you have so many disciplines you got to get ready for. Like, what's it like to train for like a, like 200-mile gravel race, and then you've got the mountain bike race. You got a 100-mile mountain bike race in 10,000 feet elevation. Like, man, there's just a lot of stress and demands how you train for it in Minnesota. Like, okay. So someone else is doing that for you.
Yeah.
Going through all that stuff.
Yeah. And, so I pick a few, A races during the year. I like the race, right? So it's what it's fun. I mean, and a lot of them are just training races, but I'll pick a few, like Leadville's usually a big one. If I do Unbound, I've done that 4 times. And if I do, so I pick a few throughout the year.
Yeah.
And they're all different a little bit. I haven't done cross that much the last couple of years because just the local cross scene's kind of dried up here since COVID. And then, of course, the winter season for fat biking, there's 1 or 2 that are like the big ones, and the rest are all sort of just training races. But and I don't have to think about it. Yeah, I don't think about it. I just like lay it all out, and then, she'll kind of be like, are you sure you want to do all those? And you're like, oh, yeah, okay, that's right. You want to do all those, so we'll figure it out. And
And you have a schedule you get allows for, at least on your work schedule. And I know you travel a bunch and things like that, but you can make it work. And if as long as you can do it, why you can do it?
Why not?
Are you a big nerd in data? Do you wear like heart rate monitors?
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
wear
yeah.
that? Do you?
Always have a heart rate monitor on, and if my power meter's not working, I'm pissed. Right? I mean, I'm not happy.
Yeah, they are kind of. You get a lot of people like don't want, and I get it. I've time trialed without. And sometimes actually I did a little bit better. I'm like, no, I don't. But I'm all about like for you. As long as I've had these instruments, I'm looking at my heart rate. I feel like you're like a Formula One car. Yeah. Okay, my heart rate's here, my power, here. I should be able to get to the landing here. And guess what happens? I kind of finish all the races kind of the same.
Yeah,
because I'm calculating this, which is good. I mean, I'm doing a decent speed, but I don't have those moments where I just get down and go, oh my God, I just broke my best time. But because I'm so calculating with all this stuff. So that's the only downfall.
Yeah, but on a time trial, you can do that in road racing or gravel racing or whatever. Like that's where it's more just fun to look afterwards and go, yeah, I remember how bad I felt there. Now I know why for sure.
That's right. That's probably right. That's probably good. You don't have time. You're cross-eyed on road races and things like that. Yeah. So do you do your sleep? Do you measure your sleep? Do you okay?
So I don't do like that Whoop thing. I looked that up once, but I never bothered. I think a lot of it, honestly, I mean, my watch can tell me something, and I'm like, well, I knew that already. I mean, you can feel it, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, but it's good to. I like to watch how much I'm sleeping because honestly, that is the biggest thing. Like if I say, am I going to hit my numbers on my interval sessions? If I don't get enough sleep, I'm not going to hit them. If I get enough sleep, I'm probably going to hit them.
Okay, what's enough sleep for you?
8 is optimal, and I usually manage with 7.
So if you're in the 6.5, you're going to be struggling.
Yeah. I can do that for one night, but 2 nights in a row, then it's really bad. There were some times when I was in Asia this past winter for work, and it was crazy. I mean, I was up late doing calls back to US, and I had stuff going on, and I'm trying to do some biking, and we biked in Singapore there like at 5 in the morning because it's so dang hot, right? So, and there's so much traffic. So my schedule was just crazy. And there was a few times where I was just like, I was 5 hours, 3 nights in a row. And I was just like,
oh yeah,
bad.
That will do it for sure. Do you how about HRV, heart rate variability, resting heart rate? Let's look at numbers. Whatever you want to share here, that's okay.
I don't track HRV. I look at my resting heart rate every now and then. It's not that super low. It's like in the low 50s, something like that. But the thing I like about that one is when I see a bump or an elevation, I know I'm overtraining. Especially I felt that when I was doing triathlon because you're trying to do all those dang different sports, right? And it's easy to overtrain there, and that's where I could tell. It's one of the indicators that is like a data point that other than just like feeling bad or feeling tired. When I saw that spike up, then I knew.
I know you have a coach, and I don't want to share all the secrets, right?
I mean, I have no secrets.
Everything is
no secrets.
I mean, I say that tongue in cheek because there's no workout that's like, oh, you're doing what? That's your workout's yours and mine is mine. And if I tried to do yours or you tried to do mine, it would not work. Are you more of a how many miles a week guy, hours a week? Are you looking at like TSS score?
What I look at is just like how many hours a week and can I fit that in against work, and how does that schedule fit against everything else in life, right? By the way, everything I do, all my workouts are on Strava. So there's no secrets. Like if anybody ever wants to see what I'm doing, how I'm training, it's there. So like I don't hide anything. I don't cover up any of the stuff. I mean, you got to know which bike I'm on. I'm sure all the power meters are a little off, but whatever. I mean, it's all there.
I can see why the pros hide it.
Yeah. I mean,
they hide their stuff with the heart rate. I mean, we have Brandon McNulty out here, right? And I see him all the time. He rides the route that I do. So here he is, tour. We finished 4th in the worlds in the time trial. He's out there. Yeah, he's not showing when he's out doing some hard stuff, but he'll put up his other things. Like, it's amazing. He'll go for 4 hours, and he's like 300 or whatever. But when they're really doing something that's important, they're not going to share it. I always think that's funny when people are like, I'm not going to share mine. I'm like, oh, It wouldn't matter. I like your point of view.
I
Yeah,
don't think
that's what Steve
you know
does.
what? If somebody doesn't want to share, it doesn't matter to me, right? Like that's their deal. Like I'm just saying that if you want to know, it's there.
Let's just talk real quick about just motivation because I think it's a good time for that. Like now that we get older, right? I don't know if you've got a few things that you're like. At first, we should define how old are you?
52, and I turned 53 so in August.
So in that age, and every 5 years it changes. But for right now, in 52, like what are things that you're noticing right now? You're like, ooh, that's a little bit different than it was before.
So I'm fortunate so far. I haven't felt like it's changed a lot for me right at this point. I mean, since I've really started focusing on it back from that day on bike number 9 when I had the 20 minutes at 3:35 or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
I think it's gotten, for sure, my endurance has gotten better since then because just of the amount of work and consistency and effort, you know. But and maybe my FTP's a little higher. I don't know. I get done. I mean, even after the Grand Fondo, New York last weekend, it was a hard race. It was 4 hours or less than 4 hours, I guess. You know, full on, a lot of climbing. So it was like, you know, it was threshold to VO2 max plus on every climb, and just trying to stay on the group. And I got done and my legs weren't even that sore. It was like kind of amazing. Now, when I did Strada Bianca, the Grand Fondo this spring, and I didn't have the build up to that, man, I thought I hadn't been that sore for a long time. So, you know, I think as long as you're training and you're progressing and you're building, I still feel okay. So I haven't been noticed like, oh man, I just can't recover as fast. Because my training, I don't think has changed that much. You know, last year I averaged 12 hours a week on the bike. When I looked at it from my 23 numbers from Strava. And so it's anywhere from like, you know, 5 or 6 hours if I have a really light week to 20, 25. I did a really big week in April. I took a week off work and I think I had a race. And then for 7 days, so in an 8-day window, I was on the bike for like 38 hours or something. It was like 500 or 600 miles. And I was pretty shelled at the end of that. And I don't think I've ever done that before. And so it felt okay. It was during the week. I mean, I felt, you know, I was tired, but I could push through.
I think that's a reasonable, manageable time. It's still a lot. It's not so much the hours, but the intensity. So if you're mixed in some really hard rides and some grueling races, 12 hours, you can get a lot done. You can be a really good rider in long distance stuff more than you think, as long as you don't have a bunch of junk miles. So that seems cool. And then when you do that one big week you did, that's as long as you don't do a whole bunch of them, you do that one big one, just let that soak in. So let's talk about your better half. Is she available?
Yeah, I'm sure she's around here somewhere. Hey, let me see if I can find her. Sandy.
Sandy and Steve are the dynamic duo, and they used to come into my training class.
Hang on a second here. Let's move some stuff.
All right.
I'm gonna give her
hey,
one
Sandy.
earbud. Let's.
Hey, Mike.
Good to see you. I was just saying that when I used to be a power spin instructor, we would do Saturday and Sunday rides, and every single time I would show up, I don't know, like 7:30, whatever. Sandy would be already riding her bike. She'd been there for like a half hour. You all made this work. A lot of times when people are endurance athletes, like especially in triathletes, because the time that it requires. Yeah, but you've all done this together, and it's so sweet because I see the posts, and you really are your best cheerleaders. So you guys ever compete with each other, or do you just for miles or?
Hey, if it's competing on miles, I'll beat them.
So yeah, Sandy. She's like to do some of those big events, super long, like the Unbound XL. She made an attempt at that. I think after 280 miles, ran out of water and just ended up having to stop. But still, I mean, 280 miles in Kansas, Flint Hills to the North Route is a hell of an adventure. So, and then I think that year you did the
long voyage.
The long voyage,
that was
which.
My redemption.
Gravel World's long voyage in Nebraska. So a 300
300 miles, about 5 miles of it was carrying a bike through the mud. So that was fun.
Steve, we're done with you. We're just talking to Sandy now. So when you do the dirty Kanza or
Unbound.
What is that?
Unbound.
Unbound. Okay. So there's another race to that. That's 200. There's another one.
Yeah, there's an Unbound XL, which is 350 miles.
That starts the day before, day after. When is
on
that
Fridays, the day before, around 3 or 5, something like that, in the afternoon. So then you go all night and just keep going.
Oh my God. Okay. So then the other one.
The other one is a long voyage. It's part of the Gravel Worlds in Nebraska, and that's 300 miles.
Unbelievable. Okay. So I've never done anything like that. When you get into the events like that, they scare me because people say, you go into a dark side, and you come back out, and I don't want to talk about it. My God, you must be going through just all the emotions and something like that. How many hours was that? The one in Nebraska?
20 some, I think.
27,
Yeah.
26,
Yeah.
something like that.
Unbound was similar.
Yeah.
Does she teach you how to be a little bit tougher in some of those races?
So it's funny because we did some of these together, right, as well. So we've done this Crusher event in the UP. That was like 28 hours one year. I think it was 32 hours the next year. We did the Alexander, which is remember Almanzo gravel race in Minnesota?
Yeah. Yep.
They had a 390 miler. I think that's the first big one. And she's like, I'm going to go do this. And I'm like, whoa, that's kind of crazy, right? She's like, yeah, I'm doing it. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing the normal Almanzo. It's 100 miles or something, I think, right? And so
you do it 4 times.
Yeah,
okay.
But then it's like, it's going to be the worst thunderstorms and terrible weather. And she's like, I'm doing it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing it with you because I just want to be there in case something goes wrong. Because I'm, because she would not do it, even though the weather looked like it was going to be a disaster. So I'm like, well, can I do it with you? I mean, I asked, I didn't tell, right? So, and she's like, yeah, that would be actually very nice. So thank you. So that was the first one. And so I think it might've been the first. Yeah. So our ultra endurance things that we've done together, we've done that one we stopped for 6 hours. We got a hotel and we slept for 4 hours, 8, but all the rest are just like straight
Oh
through.
my God.
The day across Minnesota was a gravel race we did together. It's 240 miles. That one was a little shorter, right? So maybe it doesn't fit in the same category. But some of those have been really fun events. And some of them have been a little stressful because, sometimes it's a lot going on and maybe, you don't say the right thing. but looking back, it's still been, a lot of fun. And
but we've learned a lot of things. Like you can actually fall asleep on the bike.
Done it twice. Yep.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you see those people in the race across America and the depths that they go to finish that race, against all odds. I mean, they've got their heads hanging off of some apparatus because their neck has basically lost all power. So is that something you want to do?
That one's a little way out there. I did something last year. I was supposed to be doing this race. It was going to be 1,200 miles around Minnesota, but they canceled it. So I modified it a little bit so I could make it to Lutzen 99er in time to see him. So I just ended in Duluth instead of all the way back. But it was about
How far was that?
1,050 miles. I did it in 9 days.
9 days, something like that.
Something like
9 days.
All on my own.
You're probably worried about her then, aren't you?
She had a tracker, so I was watching it. Then she like apparently ran into, not ran into, but kind of like rode up to a bear. And then so like I read it in her Strava, something about a bear, and I'm like she didn't send any message about that.
Well, that's better than the what was it, the Puma?
Yeah.
On the Unbound XL, a black Puma ran across me ran across the trail at night one night, and I thought I was hallucinating. Found out it really wasn't. I actually did see it.
So, Sandy, your background, were you an athlete in high school, or were you like Steve, kind of a late bloomer in all this?
I was a swimmer.
Oh,
so
okay.
I swam through like middle school and high school, but swimming, that was it. And then nothing in college, and didn't pick up biking until, about 10 years ago.
Well, you both complement each other. And like I say, just how you are together and smiling. Like every picture I've ever seen, there's a joy of being on the bike for both of you. It's just there. I only have a couple things left, and one of them is setbacks. And I remember following you, Steve, even though you didn't know because I was creeping on you, right? I'm looking on Strava like everyone else because I wanted to see how you're doing. I knew some of these events that you were doing. And the one thing about your events for both of you is that they're long and they're mountain bikes. They're not like a time trial. A time trial is the worst thing we get is a flat, and then that's it. You're done. The day's over, right? And it doesn't even happen that often. You're doing events where you can break a chain, you can break a crank, you can have mud all over the place, you can have mechanicals that will just derail your whole day in like 10 miles in. I think that'd be incredibly frustrating if I had been training for this thing and I get an hour into it and then, oh man, some mechanical I can't fix. But I'm always amazed how you handle that. And I wanted to ask you in person if it's the real thing. But you usually, it seems to me, you usually finish the race. Okay, it's not going to happen today. I'm not going to be on a podium, but I'm paid, I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm finishing, and I don't give a crap.
I would say that's right for both of us. Like, we hate not to finish an event. Now, it has happened, and then that's the worst thing that can happen, right? Actually, you end up feeling like you missed out on something. But like last year at Unbound, it was, this year people talked about the mud and all this stuff at the beginning, and it caused a lot of havoc. Well, the amazing thing for me is the mud. I was able to ride right through it. We stopped out the night before. Actually, Sandy and I raced in Kansas a couple years ago, and we saw that mud. So we knew how to treat it. Don't touch it. Like, it's like kryptonite. If you touch it on your bike, it's going to stick. It's going to plug everything up, and it's going to be a bad day. And so we went down and I pre-rode and figured out where do I need to ride, off to the side of the road in the grass, up next to the barbed wire fence. That was real, but it worked. The problem was, before we got to the mud, there was a pile up. I stopped. The guy rammed into behind me and bent my derailleur hanger, and I can still see the ding from his disc on his rotor where it cut into the derailleur hanger. So I knew that's. But anyway, I got in there. I knew it was bent, and I'm like, okay, I can make it through this, no problem. I just forgot about it, and I rode it through the mud, made it no problem. It was amazing. I'm like passing the pros. John Borselman was there. And I'm like, because I'd ridden with him before in Unbound and in Gravel Worlds, and I was like, John, what's going on? You got a mechanical? And it was having a bad day. But anyway, got through there, was racing really well, was with the pro women, and I just forgot, and I shifted into my top gear, and it just ripped my derailleur right off the bike. So I'm out. So basically, I'm like 25 miles in. And I stopped and I called Sandy. It's like, hey, I can't finish this race technically with another bike because this is not allowed. But I'm like, I can finish the race. So she brought me a spare bike, which ended up not being exactly right. My spare bike, I didn't get it ready enough. But I could finish. So I got to, like, I don't know what it was, 160, 70 miles. And it started to rain again. And there was another mud section coming up. And I'm just like, I can finish this. I've done it before. And I called it on that one. But like you said, like, we love to finish events, whether it be, but if it doesn't happen, you know what? This is a privilege. We're having fun. We're not here to, like, it's not a paycheck. We're not, don't have anything to prove other than to ourselves. And so if I have an issue, it's like, okay, well, fix it, go on. If I can't fix it, oh well, and I'll see what happens next race, right? I mean, yeah.
You brought up a good point because you've won some really big races here. I mean, you've competed in just about everything you can, right? And you do really well. So there's this balance of, like, what you're saying right there. Hey, I'm privileged to do this, and it's cool. But then there's this other piece that makes champions, that you really hold yourself accountable. Like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I love to train. I love to push. I love to suffer. I mean, all those things. I don't like it when my bike breaks, but you know what? I'm like, oh, well, let's see what happens next time, because there'll be a next time, right? Like, I mean, so that's the thing is I don't get too wrapped up in it, because I got lots of other stuff going on, and we got other things to do and whatever. But yeah, I don't know, just
But you have a joy of racing too.
Yeah.
You even see it when you're on a training ride and there's somebody out in front, it's like rabbit, right? It's just, he gets charged by that. So
Yeah.
I get charged up by him. I that's why I wanted to do this podcast with him, because he motivated me in a time when I was at, con being done. I don't want to say that, 'cause I don't want to, this is yours, but I have to share this one story because I felt bad. We were in the 50 plus Hutchinson, and I remember I'm not very smart.
Oh, I remember this race.
The only way I would win a bike race is I had to do a breakaway, because I'm not very fast. I'm not very smart, right? Because I'm not going to sit around and do tactics. I came here to race, and so I got hurt. All right. So I go off on this break and turn around, and there's Steve with me. It's still early in the race. And I remember him saying something. Should we be doing this? Should we be out here? And I'm like, yeah, we should. And he hung there. And of course, the pack caught us. And it ended up being a good race at the end of the day. But just like, this is how you race. Sometimes you just put yourself out there, and that's what you are to me. Like, sometimes you just go out and you're having too much fun. Tactically, it may not be the best thing, but man, it feels good.
That's why I do
care.
it, Mike. Like remember I said fat bike racing. Fat bike racing is a lot about just like power and go. Now there's some tactics that I've learned the hard way as well, but road racing, so much is about that. And learning that the last couple of years, like actually I've been riding with the Donkey Labels Masters this last couple of years, and at lacrosse last year, it was like, wow, this team racing thing can be really fun if you've got a team and know what you're doing, not just going out going hard like before. But anyway, if I go and I have a good workout and I go as hard as I can in a race, I'm happy.
I love that spirit. And so when I thought of you, and every time I see when I've been on group rides with you, and we all sprint with the gusto of it's beautiful. Just going for a Strava section with your buddies and getting it. It's like,
so
I miss those.
We were on Smithtown Road the other day. You know that one, right? And I leaned over to the guy next to me. We were cruising. I said, I've been in some major drag races on this road before, and I was thinking about you exactly. Oh, those are good times. But Sandy isn't the biggest racer, right? So racing isn't her. Like, I think it gives you some anxiety sometimes, even, right? But you know what she does like to do is go for segment hunting, right? So it's like her thing. That's her type of racing. That's like, just find the segments, hit them hard, and actually through COVID, like that was, group rides were kind of shut down, and so like she leaned way into that, and that's kind of our fun together. Like so we'll go out sometimes and do that together. She does a lot on her own as well, but that's been fun the last few years. So just like, finding segments to do and just going hitting them. And I mean, I don't know.
I am all for Strava KOMs. I am totally for it. I don't care what it motivates. Some people go, no, I love it. I mean, there are some KOMs I've just turned myself, turn myself inside out to get. And if I can get myself to do that, I don't care what it was, man. That's it. And you have to have, Sandy. You have to have. Do you know how many crowns you have?
I passed 1,500 this year, just a couple weeks ago.
So that was the target. So now the strong effort will.
In less than 10 years. So
yeah.
I'm excited.
So it's been good.
That is so good. Well, you're making me just laugh and smile and all this, and just the joy and the simplicity of just what we do. And again, grateful that we have the health to do this stuff, because nothing's guaranteed. So I'm going to laugh as much as I can. Okay, well, I'm going to end with this, because you both are here. And these podcasts are just for entertainment, right? And a little bit of instruction, people, some of these successful people, how they train, motivation, some inspiration. But more than just cycling, it's as we age, everyone, especially both of you, you're both healthy. And I'm just curious for the folks that are watching this, and they may be people that are working out, maybe people are considering getting back in the game again. But what are your philosophies or secrets in living a happy and healthy life? And it can be as a couple too on this. I mean, that's a big part too.
I like to pick something so I try to pick like an event a year or two that just that I have to drive toward, because then it keeps me doing something all the time, right? So I have to have a goal.
Gotcha.
It doesn't matter. I don't have to win it. I just have to have something that's like big and hard, because then it makes it a lot easier to not, you've got a day that it's stressful and you're like, oh, I could just not do my workout today or whatever. But if you're thinking that goal, you do it. And then when you've done the workout, it's like you actually feel better. And that helps with your stress level and everything. But it's so easy to just say no. So for me, it's about having a goal. And then I can okay, here's what you do today. Just make it through that workout, do your best. And you're going to feel better on the other end.
For me, it's like, how do you just be a good person and somebody that, is, helps others and just is generally somebody who, you think is like, this person is kind of, a normal guy and somebody that would be fun to go ride with or whatever it might be, right? So I think that's important to me. I mean, to stay motivated and whatever, for me, it's being consistent. And so, like, I don't want to stop biking, one, because I don't want to go through like a pain curve of restarting or, but to me, being consistent is, to me, a key, right? And figuring out what that is.
And make it fun. Yeah. Whatever your fun is. If your fun is a group ride, if your fun is going out for a walk and just, breathe in the air. If your fun is Strava segments, whatever it is, make it fun. When it's tough and fun, it's a chore.
Yeah, and like figuring out if it needs to change, then change it, right? I mean, I think if I look at like group rides now, I don't do as many group rides anymore. We try to cycle like once a week on the weekend together. So that's the group ride right here, you see in it. And then maybe during the week once, hopefully, and sometimes it's more, but that's kind of a goal. And maybe I'll catch a group ride here or there, but then it's like, I love doing intervals. And so that's my thing. Or I love to go segment hunting some night, like when it's a 20-mile-an-hour wind, and there's certain ones where I remember where they are, like I'm going to go segment hunting as my interval workout. And that's fun for me, right? So it's fun for her too, because she does it even more than I do. But anyway, like just figuring out what those things are. And if something gets stale, then change it.
Unfortunately, as you get older, and now in my 63rd year, things change, and they, you really have to you said it right. I don't want to start over. That's why I don't stop now. I mean, I've done this so long. Unless, my health fails and I have to, I don't want to stop. I mean, this is my life, your lifestyle too, right? And you do it so well, and you do it graciously, and you're happy, and people around you love that.
Hey, the one thing we didn't talk about at all, Mike, but I think it's worth mentioning is just nutrition, right? And thinking about, healthy eating and that kind of thing. And I would say that we probably, 10, 15 years ago, kind of really made a shift towards just like very simple, clean eating, a lot of fruits and vegetables, so like, I just want to mention this because I think it's an important bit, right? It doesn't have to be, it's like we don't have pizzas every now and then, but it's just really healthy foods, right? So every morning I'm eating oatmeal with berries. That's what I eat, right? I mean, all of this, today I might have had eggs after the ride or whatever, but and dinners is like a simple protein, a starch, and half a plate of vegetables, right? And so I think that has been something that's really helped us as well, just stay healthy and be healthy. I just wanted to mention it.
Oh, I'm so glad you did that. If you really want to look at it, watch some podcasts out there right now. It basically, if you move, you're going to be okay. Just move. Oxygen's a big deal. You want to have a high VO2 max. Just move. Do some resistance training. By all means, eat right. Stop eating processed stuff. I mean, it comes down to that. So are you like plant-based, or are you just saying just in general, just leave out the garbage and just have a nice, balanced, clean approach to eating?
That's it. Yeah, we eat it all, meat, dairy, the whole deal.
Good. Well, I'm so glad. We're going to end on this because you both are here. You both are smiling. It's just perfect. Thank you for taking time to do this podcast. It's really been a long time. I'm so glad that you did this, and I'm just grateful that we're friends. I hope that you have a wonderful season. It's just starting for you all. Right here, we're going to get to 100. Our season's almost done.
Yeah, no, we're ready to roll. And I hope when you bring your bike back this way, we get to ride again.
Thank you so much. Enjoy, stay safe, ride fast, and keep collecting those KOMs. All right?
Love it. Thanks, Mike. All right. Yeah, take care.